Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Weights and Wealth. I am Nick here with my co-host Ted, and we just had one of the most frustrating things possible happen. We recorded an entire episode and either didn't hit record or it stopped recording halfway through.
Nick usually handles the cameras. I handle the computer with the audio, and we thought it was recording. I must have we saw it recording red.
I remember looking over in the first minute and I saw it was going. And
anyway, we had probably our best episode yet, and something happened and we didn't record it. So we high-fived after the episode. We're like, yeah! And then realized it didn't record. So we're going to have to re-record that one. But episode, whatever that will be, is a great episode. So we'll let you know.
Yep, and it's going to be even better the second time around.
Absolutely.
I'm almost happy that it didn't get recorded because we're going to do such a better job.
Yep.
But anyway, as most of you know, Ted and I live in South Carolina, or I do. Ted,
I migrate.
Ted's a nomad. Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio,
South Carolina,
New York,
Milwaukee.
Who
whatever.
knows?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, there's this guy here named Alex Murdaugh who has kind of made headlines recently. Ted, have you heard of him?
Yeah, Alex told me about him one time. We were actually in an airport. I think we were flying to my friend Garrett's wedding. Shout out Garrett and Jacelyn Dolan. But we were talking about the Murdaughs, and Alex was telling me that there's one of those true crime murder mystery podcasts that is just about the Murdaughs. And the people next to us in the airport at the bar were also from Charleston, and they started talking with us, and we made friends with them. But yeah,
I've just been talking about it with people at work recently, and apparently there's a special on HBO, I think, about him. But he basically comes from this very well-known affluent family here in South. I'm not sure if he's in Charleston or just South Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the story goes very deep, and I don't know it well enough, but he killed his youngest son and his wife, and then he tried to hire someone to kill him for his oldest son to get the insurance money, but it didn't end up working out, and he's still alive.
His oldest son killed 2 people in a boating accident, and that got covered up. Mm-hmm. There's like a lot of murder, a lot of cover up, and it's just a huge scandal.
And then he's also a personal injury lawyer, and he's siphoned off money from his clients, stole money. I think they're estimating it's like $8 million or so.
But this is like a very well-known family in South Carolina for like the past 80, 100 years or something.
I think they have like 3 or 4 generations of being prosecutors in South Carolina, and
crazy story.
Who knows how deep it actually goes.
Some people need Jesus. That's the moral of the story, I guess.
But we're recording this on Sunday. I don't know what today is, but the trial is tomorrow.
Sunday the 22nd.
So the trial's tomorrow, so I'll find a lot more out about it for you guys if you are interested.
Well, maybe you can tweet it out or put it on the Instagram. Nick runs most of our social media, so
I do Twitter, TikTok, Instagram is kind of
my fiance Alex does the Instagram mostly. So we've got a full team here at Weights and Wealth because we're a professional operation, right?
Yeah, and we're not looking to expand yet, but you can always submit a resume with us for the future when we're huge.
If you are into video editing and that kind of stuff, reach out. We are looking to hire someone at some point to take that off my plate because it takes me too long.
Yeah. Or social media, fun side project. I don't particularly enjoy doing it.
if you're a super fan listener and interested in joining the team, send us a message.
Yeah. No. So I guess we should probably get into today's topic, and it kind of focuses around not overreacting to things. So I think Ted will start us off with not overcorrecting to, I don't know too much about this topic.
I'll talk about avoiding overcorrecting when you're looking at your body composition and your gains or lack of gains and the fat loss side of the equation as well. And then Nick will cover not overcorrecting with stocks, right?
Mhm.
So when you use a scale, when you're tracking your body weight, your weight will fluctuate a ton. I've done a post on this before where I tracked my weight every day for months and just showed the difference up and down that it fluctuated. And then I also did a part at the end where I went carnivore just to show how big the fluctuation is and how much it increases when you drop carbs and go like keto or carnivore, how much of a difference that makes. So when you're looking at the scale, it's very important to not live by the scale when you're making your decisions for your macros or your programming or just your diet in general. So if you want to track your body weight, something that I would recommend doing is once a week, same time every week. For a lot of people, that could just be Monday morning, right when you wake up, before you start eating and drinking water. Go weigh yourself, write it down or record it in however you do it. And then you'll have a week to week movement of your weight. This will help you not overcorrect throughout the week when maybe you drank a lot of water and had a lot of salt the day before and you see your weight jump up 1.5 pounds. Guess what? You didn't gain 1.5 pounds of fat. So
yeah, I actually have a spreadsheet that I can share with everybody. It's in Excel, and what I do is I log my weight every morning, and then I have a 7-day moving average, and
Perfect.
that can kind of tell you how much real weight you're actually changing.
Yeah, that's perfect, because if all you do is look at the scale every day and you don't take a bird's eye view of a week to week or month to month approach, what you'll wind up doing is even just subconsciously, you'll change how you eat that day and the next day according to how the scale moved. This is really going to inhibit any kind of fat loss or gains that you're trying to make. If your weight goes up 1.5 pounds one day, you might think you gained 1.5 pounds of fat. That's not true. You probably didn't gain any fat. But then if because of that you restrict your calories super hard and you keep doing that over time, whenever your body weight fluctuates from carbs or salt or water, these things all can impact your weight quite a bit. If you keep doing that over time, you'll wind up in the situation that, as we've talked about, a lot of women that try to diet find themselves in, where their calories are down at 1,200 and they're eating what a toddler should eat. We've covered this in a past episode. So it's really important to just trust the process and just view it over time. You can also take body composition pictures, the same camera angle, lighting. Don't flex, just take a front, a side, a back picture. And then you can see over time what those changes look like, because, I mean, we've been lifting for such a long time. we don't see gains even in the mirror week to week, right? It takes 2 months to notice like a big difference in any kind of gains. Losing body fat is going to be a much quicker process for us than muscle gain, just because we've already gained a lot of our potential muscle. But yeah, do you have any experience with like manipulating your calories because you thought your weight was going up or down and it just kind of throws you off track?
No, I mean, I've always kind of known that your weight varies every day. I mean, mine varies, I think like 5 or 6 pounds or so,
Wow.
which is why I use the moving average, just to get a real sense of how much weight I'm gaining or losing. But one question that I do have for you, how much do you use the scale when training a client? Do you tell them to look at it a lot?
So it really varies client to client, because if I have someone that is hyper focused on the scale or someone that doesn't use a scale, my recommendation is going to be completely different. So if I have someone that is hyper focused on the scale and they look at it every day, and the most important metric to them is their body weight. This happens a lot with people that are trying to lose weight. I'm going to tell them to throw the scale away. And we'll lay out a plan, and I just want them to stick to that plan. So I don't want them weighing themselves, because I don't want them to deviate from that plan with their calories and get off track, because that's what's going to happen if they see the scale moving up or down, especially if I'm trying to reverse diet someone and increase their metabolism. Sometimes we might gain a couple of pounds over a 12-week program if we're solely reverse dieting. Sometimes people lean out with extra calories, which is really cool when that happens. But some people, they gain a little bit of weight when we reverse diet. But that's okay, because now their metabolism is a lot higher, and then we can do a cut a lot more easily, and they can get the nutrients that they need and get the protein that they need at that deficit of calories.
Yeah, even though I weigh myself pretty much every single day, I don't really use the scale to change my diet. I mostly use it just because I want to know how my lifts are comparing to my body weight. Because I do want to start competing in powerlifting at some point. That's Ted and I want to pick a date. It's kind of hard to find one that works for both of us.
For years, Nick and I have wanted to compete together in powerlifting. I want to show him that I'm stronger than him, even though I have really skinny legs. And he wants to show me that he's stronger, since he was the one.
I think you'll be eating your words in a few months. But I want to compete at the 181 and under weight class. So that's kind of why I've been weighing myself, just so I know how much weight that I'll have to cut at some point.
How tall are you? 5'6", 5'7"?
6 foot on a good day. No, I'm like 5'11". Yeah.
So Nick's like 5'11". I'm around 6'1.5", 6'2", with my boots on, I guess. But I'm around 200 right now. I think you were just saying you got up to around 200 right now.
Yeah, I'm around 200 right. I don't like being this heavy. I know that kind of goes against what I was just saying, but I don't. This is like the heaviest I've ever been. I like staying around 185, 190. I kind of find that I feel my best and I lift my best at that weight. But once I start to get to like 200 or so, that's kind of pushing it for me.
With what Nick and I are talking about here, people probably don't care how much we weigh, but when you get to a body fat percentage that is comfortable for you, then you can do series of lean bulks and cuts and just kind of hover around that same body fat percentage, but also make progress with muscle and strength gains. And I think that's the really optimal place to be. But if you're always, like we were talking about, changing your calories on the day and blunting your progress, you're not going to get to that point where you're at that comfortable body fat percentage. For guys that might be around 12 to 15% is probably where a lot of people are going to feel comfortable. For women, might be 20 to 25% that they feel a little bit more comfortable. 20 is pretty lean, but different people are different. So
is there a good way to kind of find how much body fat that you have?
So with body fat percentage, people get really hung up on this, but I, with most clients, just like to use body composition pictures, because then you can kind of see just how you look and judge it month to month or X time frame to X time frame. But if you try to track your body fat percentage, unless you have access to like DEXA scans or something, there's going to be quite a bit of error. But if you do use some form of bioelectric impedance scale or body fat calipers where you're doing the skin folds or anything like that, just make sure that you're being consistent with it. So use the same exact tool that you're using. Don't measure it with calipers and do skin fold testing and then do a DEXA scan and then a bod pod. Just if you're gonna use your body fat percentage as a metric, use the same tool over and over again so you have consistency with it. But your body fat percentage doesn't really matter. I mean, like an exact one doesn't really matter. You're just looking for like a 3% kind of range to live in, right? And then there'll be some points where you live on the upper end of that range when we're bulking and trying to get strong, and then some points where, hey, it's summer, I'm hitting the beach, I want to look good, I'm gonna cut and live on the lower side of that.
Yeah, I kind of just like to go by how I feel more than any sort of metric, like weight or body fat. I mean, I kind of like tracking it. It's fun to track. I don't track my body fat. I don't really have any good way of doing that. I did get a bod pod test done once. I don't know if you remember. It was sophomore year.
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, this guy just came up to me in the gym and asked me if I wanted to participate in a study. He was looking for athletes' body fat percentage.
He's like, hey, guy, you're looking pretty big.
But at the time, I probably around 14, I think it was.
Okay.
Now I'm probably more like 16, 17, 18 or so. But
when I worked at Experience, we had access to a $10,000 in-body 360-degree scanner where you hold onto these handles and it spins you around and takes a scan and gives you a body fat percentage. And at that time, when I got to Milwaukee, I was like 12%. And I was eating 4,500 calories a day and got down to like 10%. But that was
while eating 4,500 calories a day?
That was when I was training people full time. I was in the gym like 14 hours a day. So it was really easy to have this super high activity level. And I was powerlifting 2 to 3 times a week. And my metabolism just got insane. But
yeah, that's how I was this past summer too. I mean, I wasn't eating 4,500, but I was hitting 3,500, 4,000 calories a day. And I think I was maintaining my weight just from going on walks. I would walk like 5 miles a day in addition to lifting.
Activity from steps is a really, really good way to burn calories because you're not adding a lot of stress to your body's total stress. I've done a post before where I talked about how stress is like a bucket and all the different forms of stress combine into this one bucket. And if that bucket starts to overflow, you have too much stress on your system. It's going to negatively impact your hormones, your sleep, etc. But with walking, it's very, very low stress compared to like running or something like that. So it's a great way to get the activity in, but not add a lot of stress and also not send some sort of competing signal to your lifting as far as getting more efficient with your calories when you do cardio like running or something like that. And we're not anti-cardio here, but that's just one of the effects that cardio has. It makes you more efficient with calories.
I just kind of find walking therapeutic too. Like I almost feel like it lowers my stress levels because it also forces me to get outside and get some sun and clear my head. I try not to go with headphones so that I can just kind of be more mentally present. But I do go with headphones sometimes.
Yeah.
Another thing about walking that I swear is the best exercise for your calves. Is there any data on that you know of? But I find when I'm walking a lot, I actually notice a difference in my calves.
Nick,
which
you and I will never have big calves.
I swear walking helps though. I know you just did a post, I think, about doing calf raises over a period of 6 months or so.
I did calves in some way, shape, or form. I did at least 3 sets of calves every single time I lifted last year. I gained like 1/8 of an inch on one side. My calves just don't grow.
Is that because I heard it's a tendon more so than a muscle? I mean, I know it's a muscle. I don't know.
Well, so
That's
there's
just what I
different
heard.
muscles that make up your calf. You got your gastrocnemius, which is like the outer calf that you see, those two kind of ovals. And then you got your soleus, which is underneath. You train the soleus more when your knee is flexed. So if you're doing like a seated calf raise, you can train the soleus underneath. Your gastrocs get more work with like a standing or a donkey calf raise. Speaking of calf gains, if you've never done a donkey calf raise, if you can find one of those machines, I think they're the best for calves. I think that's the best machine I've ever had for calf gains. But that's neither here nor there. I guess if I just had better genes, that'd probably be better than having a donkey calf raise machine. But all right, we've been doing a lot of just kind of talking about our weight and lifting here. Let's move on to something more educational for the listeners here, and let's talk about avoiding that emotional what do we call it? Overshooting with stocks now.
Yeah. So when it comes to investing, it's hard to keep a level head, but that's what you have to do. You kind of have to take emotion out of it. It's just dollars and cents. So when the stock market crashes, a lot of people's first reaction is to sell because they don't want it to keep on going down. I don't know if we saw that too much during the Corona crash. I know a lot of people, that's when they started hopping into the stock market. A lot of people spent their stimulus checks and just put it in the stock market.
My first time ever investing in the stock market was March 20-something, 2020. The lowest point that the stock market hit happened to be the day that I put all of my savings in the stock market. So I like tripled my money in that coronavirus time. But whenever the stock market falls, whenever there's a recession, not that those two things always happen together, but in either case, it means there's opportunity, right? If you read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, you'll get a sense of how things are on sale when they go down, right? You don't want to sell because you're losing value. You want to buy because it's basically on sale, right? So that low point of 2020, absolute fire sale for stocks, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we're kind of starting to see that now. I mean, the stock market, I haven't been following it super close, but it's been going down a lot recently. Part of the reason that I don't follow it too closely is because I just automate my investing, and I don't even want to be tempted to sell once it starts going down.
So similar to if you are always using the scale every day and changing your calories day to day based on the scale, if you have the tendency to check the stock market all the time, or if you are very emotional with your decisions, or if you have a propensity to gamble and bet on things, maybe you should automate your investing and just invest in index funds long term. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, or I don't recommend anything because this isn't financial advice, but
disclaimer,
just investing in index funds, period, is just that's how I do it, and that's how I think the best way is.
Yeah. I forget the episode number, but there was an episode where we went over the stats with day trading and then also with mutual funds just compared to the general market, and the market usually wins.
It was day trading. I think 90% of people lose 90% of their capital within 90 days. So it's best just to put it in the market and let it sit, because stonks always go up, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a joke, but it's serious at the same time. There hasn't been a 20-year period where stocks as in the aggregate have gone down.
Yeah.
Yet. Right. Yeah. Which I do have a cool graphic, Ted, if you want to edit that into the video.
Sure.
We can, for those of you who watch us on YouTube, or I think it's on, Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify has the video feature as well. And then we're on YouTube and Rumble if you like to watch us. Also, with the first few episodes, if you were watching us, there was some audio drift where over the course of the entire episode, the audio and the video would get misaligned, because I'm a rookie to this whole editing thing. But I finally figured out how to fix that. So from now on, the audio and the video stay aligned, and you don't have to watch the really frustrating thing where the lips don't line up by the end of the episode. There's some things that just kind of are very hard to look at, and one of them is when the lips don't line up with the sound. Another thing is when there's like a face that isn't completely human, but it looks very human. It's like the Polar Express. Is that what it's called?
Which I have heard stuff about that before, and I just wonder why. Like, why do we evolve to?
There's an effect.
Aliens. That's what I think. Aliens.
There's an effect. It's something like the Hidden Valley effect. That's not exactly what it's called, but something like that, where if a face doesn't look human, it's like a curve, then it doesn't bother you. But then as it looks more and more like a human face, it starts to bother you more until it looks completely human, and then it doesn't bother you. It's a really weird phenomenon, but yeah.
Which, I mean, there has to be a reason why we evolved to be scared of almost completely human-looking faces.
So it's interesting you say that. If we look at all the different species of humanoids over the past 300,000 years, like it used to be that there were Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. But over the past couple of decades, we've discovered Denisovans and these other humanoid species that we beat out in the long run over the past few 100,000 years. But it would make sense that if a face is similar to human, but not completely like a Homo sapien face, then our brains would want us to not like it and maybe compete against it and go to war with them or something like that. And maybe that's why we defeated the other species over the past couple 100,000 years.
It's really interesting. It's kind of fun to opine on these things. I'm just trying to...
We don't know what we're talking about, but we're talking anyways.
But it's fun to think about it and talk about it.
When you have a podcast, you can just kind of do that, I guess. You can just kind of
talk about whatever you want.
Although, are we really a podcast if we don't talk about jujitsu or do shrooms? I feel like most podcasters do those two things, and we don't do either of those.
Well, I mean, I have been listening to podcasts specifically on shrooms or psilocybin recently. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it was just not decriminalized. Scientists are finally allowed to study it again, whereas they weren't for, the period of like 1970 something through a few years ago.
They've been testing psilocybin with PTSD patients, right? Is that?
With a lot of mental health issues, but from PTSD, depression, anxiety, they've had very positive results so far.
Okay.
And the nice thing is about psilocybin is it one treatment is what they found works. Whereas, SSRIs, you have to take them every day, or I don't know, every day, every couple of days.
Well,
Yeah.
and just to stay in line with my shirt, Big Pharma is not going to like mushrooms compared to SSRIs because they have the patent on SSRIs, whereas mushrooms are a naturally occurring substance. So,
Right. Especially with it being, like a once in a while treatment.
yeah.
There's not as much profit there, which I kind of would think that is why psilocybin wasn't really allowed to be studied for that long.
Don't go do psilocybin.
No,
all
this
those studies with the treatment for psilocybin are with a licensed psychiatrist, right? They have someone that's experienced in guiding the trip or whatever.
Right.
Nick and I don't really do plant.
No,
Nick and I don't do plant medicine.
I just find it very interesting.
Yeah,
is what I would say. Yeah, and yeah, it is all done. There's a psychiatrist watching you the entire time.
How did we get from stocks to shrooms?
I don't know.
Back to the stocks. If you are someone that is very disciplined and you're able to take emotion out of your decision-making process, there are other things that you can do with investing in stocks outside of index funds long term. If you read Good to Great, really good book, highly recommend it. They talk about companies that have like great leadership and the characteristics of those companies, and they also show the value of those companies and how they astronomically beat the market every time. And we've gone over this before with everyone's going to try to pick the next Apple, right? But I think my point here is if you find a company that you believe in their long-term goal and mission, and you think that they're a good company with good principles and good leadership, you can invest in that company for long term. I know a lot of people out there have invested a lot in Waste Management and Caterpillar. These are some of the long-term stocks that make up part of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett's portfolio. So you don't just have to do index funds. You can also do companies that you believe in for the long term. But there's also more risk whenever you do a single company.
There is, yeah. I mean, there's really no problem with taking 10% of your portfolio and putting it in a single stock, especially if it is a cause that you believe in. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, I mean, you hope to make money, but if it's a cause that you really support, it makes sense to give that company your money. Mm-hmm. So,
but you want to be careful, and you want to make sure that it's a logic decision and not an emotion decision, because that's where people get into trouble. If we look at Bitcoin,
mm-hmm. We were just talking about this before recording this.
So we both had a little bit of money in Bitcoin, not a lot, but I got some at I think 11,000, and then when it went up to 30, I sold some, bought some. And then it went up to 60,000. And then I think we both bought a little more at 60 because we thought it might go up to 100. But that's where the overshooting with the scale that we talked about happens. That was partially emotional decision off of greed, wanting to get more of the gains, and then also off of not wanting to miss the ride. Essentially, that happened. That's big with anything that spikes, whether it's the GameStop or the crypto. Not wanting to miss the boat. It's hard to detach yourself from that, but that's where people run into a lot of trouble with stocks, and that's where they do the opposite of what everyone knows to do, which is buy low, sell high. People are afraid to miss out on the ride, and they buy high. And then it crashes and they have to sell low, and they do the opposite of what they know they should be doing.
And I mean, I think Bitcoin's at 22,000 now or something like that.
Plummeted.
But this is kind of how I learned to be a disciplined investor. It was through a lived experience. I mean, fortunately, I was investing most of my money into the S&P or QQQ, which that one has kind of tanked because that's an index fund that mirrors the tech stocks. So that one hasn't done too well.
Tech stocks been hammered.
Yes.
But I think they've been down like, what, 20, 30, 40%, some of them in the past year. But that might be a good opportunity.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, to buy more.
Sale.
And yeah.
So this is how you should go about looking at stocks, and the scale, in our opinion, is take the emotion out of it, take a long-term approach, and don't change your strategy based on how something is performing day to day. That's really the principle that we're trying to explain here in this episode. Do you have anything else to add to it?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
This was a very meandering episode. But if you've been enjoying our podcast, please like, share, subscribe, whatever the platform offers in terms of giving out 5-star reviews, stuff like that.
There are plenty of different places to give us a 5-star. I know Spotify, Apple Music.
Apple, you can do reviews.
Can you do something on YouTube? I don't know too much about
can
YouTube.
Subscribe and like videos. Not sure about reviews. We don't really use YouTube too much, but we heard all the young kids are using YouTube. So
same with TikTok.
All right. Thanks for sticking with us today, guys.